Good morning. This is Greg Kojak at Kojak Capital. It's Thursday, February 13th, 2020. So this is the first quarter webinar. I'm going to show a few charts and graphs and kind of give a rundown on the U.S. economy and markets, and hopefully gives a firm picture of where we're at given where we've been, which is, it looks like it's trending in a positive way. So it's kind of exciting. And a quick feedback question from everybody. Typically, you've probably seen these emails and webinars come to you in email form. So I sent out an email with a lot of charts and graphs and text description. So I'm going to try this as a video. I'll try to keep it to about 15 minutes. If you like this format, if it's easier just for you to listen and follow along and you like it better than an email, please let me know. Just send me a quick note or a comment. Hey, Greg, this is great. I love it, and I'll keep doing it. So it's not that much more time for me. So just trying to make things easy. Okay, so first things first, as any proud dad, and those of you that know my family, just a quick update. So I've got Claire over here. She just had her very first piano recital. Claire's 8. I had a really exciting time for my 40th birthday back in January. My son Ben, who's rocking out in guitar, actually had a guitar concert on my birthday. So that was a really special event and experience. And here's Claire. She's got her recent karate tournament. She's kicking butt, literally, and it's really fun to watch her kind of compete and go the distance with karate. So, and Caroline is the youngest, are cute as a button, and was just a happy camper to be around the family. And here's us on my birthday back in January. We went out to eat and got a chance to rock in my 40th birthday with my family. So, and how can we forget our newest addition to our family, Bruno? So we got him back in August. He was about 12 pounds. We got a black lab. And here he is in full 58-pound form and laying in my lap just like he was when he was back in August, 12-pounder. So great dog, great addition to our family. Happy to have him. So that's the updates on the Kojak family. So let's get started and move on with some of the more boring things, I guess. So a lot of you have seen this. This is the U.S. recession risk indicator tracker. We've got the 12 leading economic indicators. Ranging from in the financial sector, we look at inflation, the consumer itself, and business activities. So looking kind of between quarters, and especially between third quarter 2019 and fourth quarter, not too much has changed if you kind of visually look at what's happening with the trackers, either indicating recession, caution, or expansion. The wage growth has trended to a recession indicator, red, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Commodities have strengthened, and ISM new orders also just recently, probably within the past 2 or 3 weeks, have really signaled a positive trend. So all these things are good. The overall signal, again, remains at caution for right now. And as you know, I like to keep this in perspective. So even though here's the current state that the economy is in, we are showing signs of recession and expansion with caution all the way down. I want to kind of give a good perspective on previous recessions and how these economic indicators were flashing back then. So if you look at 2007 and 8 and 9, here's how that looked, 2001, 1990, 91. So overall, if you just take a look at this and just look at the colors, you're going to notice that we're still well short of, some of those indicators being all red, flashing recession going back to the kind of those previous recession periods. So we are watching it closely, but again, the hold is in caution mode currently. This is interesting. So I came across this chart just the other day, and we take a look at the Fed and what the Fed has done. So the Fed has cut 3 times, and if we look back to previous times that the Fed has decreased the loan interest rate, the Fed rate, 3 times. So they did it back in 1996, they did it in 98, they did it in 2001 and 2007. we can take a look at and see what happened after they had these cuts. So in two of the times, 96 and 98, they did engineer what's called a soft landing, where the markets and the economy stabilized and actually grew as a result. There were two other times where it was kind of the opposite, where it was too little too late, and the economy did roll over into a recession. So again, we are in this limbo period where the Fed has cut, but we are going to show some pretty interesting economic data to indicate that things are actually looking very positive, and growth is here, and there's a lot of positive indicators and data to look at. So I'll just keep going. One of the biggest and most important of all the indicators is obviously the strength of the consumer, which is fueled by jobs and in the economy and spending. So we did cross over this very unique inflection point going back to about 2018, where we actually have more jobs than we have unemployment. So there are more jobs currently available than there's people without work. So this is a very positive indicator. If you're looking for a job and possibly a better job, this is a great time in the economy to take a look at and know that the economy is actually in a really good place with jobs. I recently saw a couple of articles on the financial media talking about liabilities, and the consumer on the personal debt side is growing quickly, gathering and I guess taking on a lot of personal debt. But it's surprising because a lot of the data that I'm seeing is quite opposite. So here's the amount of debt that the average U.S. household has. And if you can tell, it's been steadily declining since we had, the 2008 recession. But what's also interesting is these debt levels are as low as they've ever been, going back to 1984. So the consumer by itself as an average in the U.S. economy is looking really good if you kind of study that balance sheet and how much debt they have. Okay, so next we can talk about the Fed, and obviously the Fed lowering rates. They're trying to incentivize the economy and spur on the economy. And one of the factors to consider is that the Fed has ammunition to kind of create more growth and expansion and lending within the economy, which is what stimulates growth and spending. So this chart actually shows where the Fed is, the balance sheet of the Fed as a percentage of GDP. And so when we compare it to the Eurozone and of course, Japan, we can see that the United States is one of the least leveraged economies and countries when you look at it independently, especially, given Europe and what's happening there and kind of their difficulties to get their economies on the right path. And of course, Japan, which is a different story in and of itself. But good news that the Fed, if in fact there is a recession, it kind of rolls over and starts declining. The Fed does have quite a bit of room to keep going with a quantitative easing program, as that was done previously, again, going back to about 2008, 2009. Okay, so one of the biggest topics that's been discussed is manufacturing. Manufacturing has been pretty much in a free fall going back to about 2000, and this is going to be probably 18, mid 18, late 18. So production has been declining significantly. Inventories also have been declining significantly. But what's interesting is when in these kinds of scenarios, when demand dries up, manufacturing cuts production quickly and significantly to kind of right the ship, so to speak, to meet up with declining demand. But what we can see here is in previous times, this would be 2015, this would be 2013, when there was periods of decline in production, and especially when production was cut more than inventory, so there's actually more inventory available and ready to be distributed. There was a quick turnaround as a result. So you see a quick increase in production following, because essentially what happens is these manufacturers go too far on that spectrum of cutting. And so there's kind of a lull period, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how quickly is the demand going to come back? But I got to be careful. I have to, control my costs and overhead. So usually there's like an overcorrection period. But looking at where we're at currently, given all this decline, matching it up with previous times, there were some significant and quick reversals in these trends. So that is a kind of a consensus that I've read out there with different people studying the manufacturing industry, that we are headed in a kind of a rebound period right now, which is, again, positive and reassuring data. And again, some supporting evidence of that, we can look at the ISM, the Institute of Supply Management and Manufacturing activity, and also the spread between ISM, which is manufacturing and non-manufacturing. So non-manufacturing would be more white-collar jobs, desk jobs, that type of thing. So you can see that the spread is increasing significantly with the slowdown. But again, if we look at these periods where there was a quick and significant decline in manufacturing and line it up, you can kind of see that things turned around in the next couple of quarters following that. So happened a couple of times previously. So this would have been probably 06, and this would have been, again, 13, as we mentioned, and 15 as well. So a lot of signs pointing to that we are about to turn that corner and start to see these lines converge. So wage growth, I talked about that in the first slide, that that was one of the recession risk indicators that was flashing. But if we look at high-skilled workers, which is the dark purple line, mid-skilled workers, which is this solid gray, and then the dotted purple is low-skilled, you'll hear a lot of talk about having very little or stagnant wage growth amongst the lower skill. But we've actually seen the opposite here. So you can see it's been strengthening, and leading up into 2020, it's really kind of continuing on this path, almost at a 45-degree angle, which is, indicating that there is some very positive and reassuring wage growth. For the mid and the high skill, you'll actually see a little bit. The mid skill has been increasing. The high skill worker wage growth has kind of been in a little bit of a limbo period and a plateau period. So, but if you're talking about the people that are out there on hourly wages, those the wage growth there is showing positivity and an upward trend, which is good news. Okay, so that kind of wraps it up. I think I held to my time, and again, I'm looking for feedback. If you like this quick summary, I kept it short and sweet. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Greg at kojakcapital.com, and the telephone number is 773-572-6455. Thank you for listening in, and I'll talk to you at the next webinar. Thanks.